The Square Ball Podcast.
Hello there, welcome to the show. It's brought to you along with Levi Solicitors, who will offer you a 10% discount on your legal fees at levisolicitors.co.uk/the square ball. 15% on wills, conveyancing and probate until the end of January 2023. Same web address, have a look at that. Dan Michael and Moscow here doing the TSB guide to losing at Sutton.
Switch off.
Happy days.
Spoiler alert.
I know we kind of, we have existential dread around Leeds United and terror, but we can look back at these and laugh now, can't we?
Yeah, I suppose so. But yeah, the reason we're covering this week is because it was the last time we got as far as the FA Cup fourth round.
Was Sutton United. Televised clash. What year is it, Michael?
2017.
2017. Oh.
Yeah, so this was our last good year in the Cup.
Wow.
If you can call it that. We've beaten Cambridge, and that was it. But still...
What score was that Cambridge game?
We won 2-1.
Well, was that at home? It was, wasn't it?
I think we made a right pig's ear of that as well.
No, we can't have been at home because we're not allowed to do that in the FA Cup.
No.
Never at home. No, we made that difficult too. But having got past them, we got a nice easy game in the next round.
Where was Leeds United at this point then? What were we like? Because Gary Monk was the boss here.
It was kind of going all right.
It didn't start brilliantly, but then we kind of hit some good form, didn't we, after that?
Who were third at this point?
We were surprisingly good after we managed to get through the vital League Cup tie at Fleetwood when we lost, didn't we?
Against Fleetwood?
Did we beat them?
No, we had a League Cup run this year as well. We got past, I've written it on here, Fleetwood, Luton, Blackburn and Norwich, and then we lost to Liverpool.
But we were losing at Fleetwood and Massimo Cellino was ready to sack Gary Monk after like 3 games, wasn't he?
Yeah, that's right.
Because we weren't playing well enough. And then Luton is the game when Cellino was on a train drunk coming back, just like slagging off everything to do with the club, and he was promising to change the badge and all these kind of things. It was just like, yeah. So things were kind of... Gary Monk had been a bit of a surprise appointment, particularly to Steve Evans, because he thought he was still in the job over the summer. And
only Steve thought that.
Cellino had been saying, no, I can never work with another English manager. I don't know if he thought Stephen Evans was English and was going to Italy to find a special manager, and he came back and just gave it to Gary Monk.
He was actually a reptile, I believe.
Mm. Yes, although we didn't know that at the time. At the time, Gary Monk had been Premier League Swansea manager, and it sort of seemed like that was quite a big appointment, but then just seemed to be getting sucked into the Cellino vortex at the start of the season. Came through nearly punching Adam Pope in a post-match interview as well. It's quite when he was asked about the team's identity.
Yes.
When he was asked to define that.
I reckon Popey would have taken him. He's a big boy. He's a big boy, is Popey.
But all that came through, and we started winning. We're up to third and through to the fourth round of the FA Cup, and
on a hot streak of talent as well, Moscow. Let's not forget the Forest goal.
Yeah, I was about to say Suleiman Dakaru just totally bowed in a volley, which was incredible. So things were really kind of cooking. And as it's probably worth mentioning as well, surely at this time as well, Andrea Radrizzani had just like bought half the club, hadn't he? That was just going on, wasn't it? Where he was kind of turning up and was going to bail this new... Cellino had been quiet, but Cellino had also been in a sting by the Daily Telegraph, offering to sell a percentage of the club to an agency in a complete contravention of all the FA rules and regulations so that they could have their players passing through. So there was everything that was good. Pontus Jansson had arrived, Kyle Bartley, Luke Ayling, all those kind of things were coming together. And then we had this promise of a new owner, but it was all still quite difficult and a little bit difficult to believe in us being any good, which is why perhaps this match helped.
They were 83 league places below us, sort of mid-table in the National League. What's that one now? Is that the Vanarama now, as it is in modern day parlance?
I'm going to say yes. It's the one below the League Two anyway.
Right,
that one. But they came up from the Conference South the year before, so they were.
Oh, so they'd come from the regional league into that one, right?
So they were at the height of their powers. But they'd beaten Dartford, they'd beaten Cheltenham, they'd beaten AFC Wimbledon.
Some big names in there
to reach this.
Yeah. So a few changes in the lineup, which is one of the big talking points that emerged from this game and kind of made Leeds fans who watched it on telly go, that's interesting. Because the previous league game against Forest, we had a back four of Luke Ayling, Kyle Bartley, Pontus Jansson and Gitana Berardi.
Do it in the proper order that the song was.
You sing it. Go on.
Pontus Jansson, Kyle Bartley, Luke Ayling and Berardi.
I was just reading left to right, but you did it far better than I. Obviously, Rob Green and goals. That's a fairly solid back five. You've got Union O'Kane, Liam Bridcut in front of them.
Solid midfield.
With Roof, Hernandez, Dallas and Wood completing the lineup, which is a fairly strong lineup actually when you look at it, isn't it, really, by 2017 standards?
You can see why we were bothering the playoffs, but you can also see why perhaps we were not as strong in some areas as other areas.
So, some changes to the lineup for this game. Marco Silvestri found himself in goal. Back four of Louis Coyle.
Yeah, there's no song for these. You can do these in order.
Oh, can I? Right, okay. Some kid called Mackay, which we'll come on to in a second. Fella called Luke Cooper, Liam Cooper, and Tyler Denton. Have I got all the names right there?
That's correct, yep.
Yeah. And then we've got Elon Musk's ex-wife in midfield with somebody called Whitehouse and Stuart Dallas.
Not the band.
Yeah. Stuart Dallas made the cut here with Calvin Phillips in behind the front two in what looked like a midfield diamond with Marcus Antonsen and Suleiman Dukara up front. So quite a few changes there to this. Do you think maybe Gary Monk was trying to make a point about the January window here?
Well, that was the thing, wasn't it? We were... the theory was he was saying, look how terrible everyone outside the first team is. And he did make that point, I suppose. He made it quite emphatically in this game.
Feels like, not for the first time, Stuart Dallas had quite a lot on his shoulders here.
He did, bless him. And this was Calvin Phillips and Liam Cooper 1.0 as well, wasn't it? This was Liam Cooper's season where he'd been displaced by Kyle Bartley and everyone was like, he's never going to play for us again. We've got Pontus Jansson, he's great. I mean, in fairness, Liam Cooper, as we'll come on to, didn't do himself any favours in this game either, did he? So, yeah, it was a change team, but I think looking at it, there were definitely concerns about Mackay and Whitehouse in particular. But the rest of them were all professional footballers.
Yeah, I mean, it is worth adding as well. We had a couple of away games in the following week after this at Blackburn and Huddersfield. So a bit of rotation was to be expected, I think, given how onerous the league campaign is in the Championship.
Yeah, and in defence, I know his career hasn't... Well, neither of their careers have panned out at Leeds, but Coyle is a decent right back and has gone on to play pretty well.
He's captain of Hull, isn't he?
Yeah, he's gone.
Seems to be playing his way...
Of the whole town?
I think he's playing his way into becoming a bit of a Hull City legend. He's captain, probably will be manager at some point.
I'm glad he's found his forever home.
Yeah, it feels that way, and it's Hull's still in the Championship. Yes, right. That's fine. So if you can be captain of a Championship team, you're a good footballer, aren't you? So he's doing all right for himself. Tyler Denton never recovered from being sent on loan to Michael Brown's hated Port Vale. An absolute curse upon anybody, not only to be sent to the team that robbed Leeds City of our rightful place in the Football League in 1919, but at a time when they were managed by the person who robbed our midfield of any quality whatsoever around 2011-12 in Michael Brown. So that was never going to do him any good, and kind of dropped down the leagues. Where is he now? Is he Kingsling still?
Yeah.
Kingsling. Kingsling?
Yes.
Kindling.
Yes. That team selection, and the two that stand out, as we mentioned there when I was reading through it. Mackay and Whitehouse. Paul Mackay, Billy Whitehouse. Who were they, Michael?
Well, there are two Mackay boys, Paul and Jack, both sons of Willie Mackay.
Who was the agent of Ross McCormack.
Yeah.
Among others. Lots of links to France and England. We signed a number of his French landfill players, didn't we, in the 2000s post. But was it just before we got relegated?
Well, it was the season we got relegated.
Yeah.
If you want to get relegated, sign a bunch of players from Willie Mackay's agency. Nothing could possibly go wrong.
As Doncaster successfully did years later as well. Just sign all these people and watch your club drop through the fucking floor. So he's got his two sons at the club, and also his nephew is Billy Whitehouse. Now, they all came to be at Leeds.
At the same time.
That is quite something, isn't it?
It is unusual, yeah, particularly because we're third in the Championship at this point, and we're signing people from Doncaster who are in League One, and shitter than us.
I mean, Pontus Jansson came from Torino, didn't he? In Serie A, and Kyle Bartley came from West Brom.
Yeah, Premier League West Brom at the time.
Was it not Swansea?
No, it was Matt Grimes.
Okay, I'm
Oh,
confused.
actually, no.
Yeah, it might be Kyle Bartley.
Kyle Bartley was
from
he was
Swansea,
Swansea,
at this time,
sorry, you're
and then he
right.
went to West Brom, but still Premier League Swansea. So we were fishing in big ponds
And Doncaster.
and Doncaster.
Yeah, so we signed the Mackay twins. We get them when Steve Evans is manager. We get our January signings, 2016. Good, solid transfer window. So they've barely played for Doncaster, either of them. They're considered surplus to requirements. Can't get anywhere near their team.
So where are you going to move from there?
So they move up
Naturally.
to us.
Yeah.
Then in August 2016, we go back to Doncaster for a 20-year-old winger who never plays in Billy Whitehouse. And
Right.
again, another solid acquisition, you would think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this was the only
Tell
game.
you what, do you know what? Can I just stop you there? I'd say that's really interesting.
It is interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
This was the only game in which any of those three appeared for Leeds
Yeah.
in a first-team capacity, which is interesting.
However, it seems to have been quite a boon to their career.
Yeah.
It's like a big favour for them, isn't it?
Well, it stood them, whatever they did in their time at Leeds must have impressed Cardiff City.
Yeah, because come December 2017, the Mackay
So having been surplus to requirements at Doncaster
in the League One.
and then moved up to Leeds, who were trying to push towards the top end of the Championship.
Yeah, and playing, well, two of them played once and one of them played nonce.
that's the right. Yeah,
Nonce.
correct.
Did you just say nonce?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's what happens when you. That's zero.
That's it. Yes, that's what you meant.
Yeah. So they both terminated the Leeds contracts December 2017.
Yep.
And then boy, did we make a mistake because no
Snapped up.
sooner had we done that than Cardiff City Premier League. Neil Warnock's Premier League Cardiff City
Swooped.
came straight in 2.5-year deal. Bang, there you go, lads.
Bloody hell, Michael.
Do you know how many games they played for Cardiff?
Oh, is it not many?
It's none.
Anyway, on to more serious matters because Jack, through the agency that they work for, is now more recently known for helping to arrange the flight for Emiliano Sala that took him to Cardiff and
Yes.
ultimately cost him his life.
Yeah, so the Mackay, there's another Mackay brother who is an agent. So there's the two that are...
Because Willie wasn't actually an agent towards the end, was he? Like of this all happening, he'd stepped away from that.
He'd been forced to step away due to
Yes.
bankruptcy, is what had happened.
Right.
So yeah,
Yeah, he was disqualified rather than stepping away. I think
Yeah.
one caused the other.
but fortunately, Mark, his other son, was an agent at this time,
All right.
and his dad may have helped him with a few bits.
And some knowledge in that.
Well, it's it's
Yeah.
a fine footballing family with a lot of knowledge and experience.
Heritage.
Football heritage.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And yes, so they were involved in Emiliano Sala's ill-fated flight. But Paul Mackay is still playing, though, at a very high level.
Yes, the third tier of Scottish football.
Mm-hmm.
Queen of the South, is it?
Yes, Jack is at Ashton United, which is the 7th tier of English football. Billy Whitehouse is at Chorley, which is the 6th tier of
Right.
English football.
Yeah, and it's I can't remember if Jack was perhaps injured at the time, and had he been fit and available for the Sutton match, Gary Monk was going to throw all three of these. They call them Nepo babies now, don't they? Chuck all three of them in to his team alongside. I mean, we had Matt Grimes, who was his mate from Swansea, so there was already Gary Monk had enough on accommodating Matt Grimes, Kyle Bartley, and Pablo Hernandez, who he'd all brought in as his old mates from Swansea. So I'm trying to get this gang together. Meanwhile, you have the Doncaster contingent all getting involved, and this seemed to be very much a way of saying, well, I mean, didn't say Matt Grimes didn't really advertise himself very well in this game, but perhaps saying that the Mackays and Billy Whitehouse are not at the level of, because Billy Whitehouse being a winger, I guess he took Pablo Hernandez's place in the first team, and Paul Mackay at centre-back in for Kyle Bartley. So there's definitely a difference in quality, perhaps, that sometimes, I'm not saying Massimo Cellino as chairman was some kind of blundering idiot who didn't know what was going on. I just feel like from time to time Cellino needed things really spelling out to him, preferably before lunch. And this was a lunchtime kickoff, if I remember correctly. So you're getting him probably at his sharpest.
Anyway,
And you just need to show him Massimo, because I can imagine the conversations behind the scenes. It's like, Willie's son, both his sons. Why are they in the team? Is that, well, I can put them in the
Have a
team.
look.
Put them in the team.
Credit. I know we'll come on to the game in a bit, but just to talk a bit more about about Mackay's performance in this. You could tell very early on he had the opinion that the less I have the ball, the less it'll stand out that I can't play football. So as soon as he got it, square pass to someone.
Keeper.
I don't even try and kick it. If I try and kick it far,
Square ball, if you like.
if I try and kick it far, I might miss kick it. If I try and run with it, I'll look stupid.
Keep calm and give it to
Get rid
Coops.
of the fucking thing.
Hot potato. Sutton's team, let's talk about them as well. So they were managed by Paul Doswell. Ian Baird, Bairdy. Bairdy's going to get you as his assistant, former Leeds United hero from the, he played half of the promotion campaign in 89-90. He didn't before he was sold, but he helped to get us up anyway by scoring goals for Middlesbrough, was it, that he went to afterwards?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Anyway, he said before the game rather, if they played this game 10 times, that Leeds would win 9 out of 10. But it depends on the side that Gary Monk puts out. Hey, and also mentions that the pitch gives them an advantage, and that
It was a 3G pitch.
Yeah, so it wasn't real grass, which is a great leveler, as the kids would say.
Yeah, they've since been promoted and had to dig it up. But at this point, because they were non-league, they were still allowed to play on it, and they had some mates of Luke Ayling in their team.
Is it Craig Eastman is the kid who's in their midfield? A former teammate of Ayling and Bartley. They were all in Arsenal's Youth Cup winning side.
As was Rory Deacon, who I managed to find a picture of the two of them in a. If you're on the video of this, we'll get Lee to put this picture up. But yes, you can see a young Luke Ayling on the front row and Rory Deacon on the back next to the big goalkeeper.
They did have a bit of pedigree in their midfield in the form of Nicky Bailey, who had been paid for by Middlesbrough, 1.4 million from Charlton some years back, 2010. That's exciting.
Yeah, and he wasn't old. He just had some injuries and kind of dropped down the leagues a little bit.
And let's talk about the the comedy fat man on the bench, shall we?
Yes, old Wayne Shaw. He was fairly conspicuous in this game because he's like a man in his mid-40s who weighs about 20 stone on the bench, which you don't see every day, do you? But he became more famous when they played Arsenal in the next round, and he ate a pie on the bench and was subsequently banned for contravening some betting rules.
Yeah, he was paid by a betting company to eat a pie on the bench. When it was like the magic of the cup. It's like, oh, look at that, what an ordinary fella on the bench, and he's playing in the FA Cup. Isn't that great? And then the next round's like, oh, ordinary fella being paid loads of money by a gambling firm.
It was the Sun's gambling thing as well, just to make it worse.
To the game itself, then, in many ways, this was perhaps the least interesting thing about this day.
Yeah, we lost.
Yeah. Sort of a Histony vibe in terms of there was water on the camera lens, possibly a shed somewhere, with the cameras in it, all that kind of jazz.
Yeah, it was. It looked like a defeat quite early on. As soon as you're looking through the distorted image on the TV, you're getting your first look at Billy Whitehouse and Mackay on the ball, and you're going, okay, this is not necessarily going to be a good day for us.
Yeah, I sort of remember feeling quite cross, as if it was like whatever Gary Monk was doing, putting these players in our team, was depriving us of a decent cup run. And also, I mean, a lot of fans had gone. People had paid to travel to bloody Sutton. I suppose you get to see in bed, which is nice. But yeah, and it had definitely that feeling from early on. It was like, oh, this is just going to be an awful day. It
was one of those days as well where Leeds managed to turn someone who's just having a solid non-league, lower league career into a world beater for the day, because Rory Deacon, who's the former teammate of Ayling, just absolutely destroys us in this. He's just running at us and shooting at us, and it's him against Silvestri in the first half.
Yeah,
forces a couple of good saves from him. He has a goal ruled out for offside. So we saw this coming. It was not a smash and grab in this game. They were better. More or less the whole thing.
Gave them the weapons to do it. We had a chance with Dallas in the first half as well. Ball over the top, tried to put it over the keeper, didn't work. Half time.
Useless. Nothing will ever come of that boy.
And they took the lead early in the second half. Was it 52 minutes or thereabouts?
It's a classic of the era. Is this for Leeds? Well, I suppose it's not this era because we were generally a lot better.
The era being 1919 to now.
I suppose it was. There's a bit before. A bit before Monk and a bit after was like this, just a ball over the top and a goalkeeper and causing chaos.
Well, yeah, I mean, Rob Green was very good for us, particularly in the second half of this season, but he wasn't playing in this match.
No. So there's this ball over the top, should have been dealt with, really. Out comes Silvestri.
I think Mackay should deal with it first, but he's remembered if he has to kick it, it'll look bad. So he tries to leave it to Coyle, and then Silvestri comes through out of nowhere calling for it as well. It ends with all three of them just in the corner of the box, all failing to get the ball. well, they have a couple of kicks. It's Deacon, first of all, takes it past Silvestri, has a bit of a kick and goes down. Then someone else is fouled by Coyle. And eventually the penalty is given. It's pretty soft. It's bordering on a dive, I would say. But
It sort of put us out misery, though, didn't it?
yeah, it was one of those we go,
Yeah, that's going to be the goal. Yeah.
Yeah. Penalty's taken, puts it in. Silvestri goes the wrong way. 73 minutes then.
good solid gut on the man taking the penalty as well, of Collins.
Fast forwarding, look, it's so Leeds.
It's got a real non-league vibe to it. He's not. Don't get me wrong. He's not fat by any normal standards.
But when you saw how thin Bielsa's Leeds were, you go, bloody hell, they were emaciated compared to these lads.
Yeah, Premier League, you either get like Adama Traore to Brendan Aronson, don't you? With different ways of having no fat on you. Whereas this guy is just, he enjoys his Fridays. Nothing wrong with that.
It's not Paul Butler's game anymore, is it?
No.
So I was to say 73 minutes. That's the end of Billy Whitehouse at Leeds. Gets replaced by Kamar Roof. Never see Billy Whitehouse again.
No. Well, I mean, some people did.
Indeed.
The people of various non-league clubs where he would play his trade.
Not long after we went fully Leeds, didn't we? And that's when Liam Cooper gets a second yellow.
The end of Liam Cooper at Leeds?
Absolutely.
Could have been.
Deserved?
Yes. It was a yellow card.
Anyway, we're out. Very Leedsy. And Monk took responsibility for it, which is fair enough, I suppose. But
yeah, he wasn't pinning this on the group, was he?
No. Made a lot of changes, didn't work, backfired, he said.
Everything didn't go right. That's what led to the defeat and the poor performance. I'm the one who made all those changes, so it's for me to take it on the chin.
And then some generic speak about mentality, not a good loser, blah, blah, blah.
We didn't want to see this happen, but it has.
Do you think the message to the board, if that's what it was, do you think it worked?
A bit. I mean, this is a couple of days before the window shut, isn't it? So there wasn't much time, but we did get Pedraza and
bring him back, bring him home.
Mo Barrow in on loan, which was Pedraza was all right. Barrow was not.
And we were linked after the
I saw the game. Saw this in the reports from in the Gary Monk quotes. It was saying in recent days Leeds have been linked with Ashley Fletcher and Sergi Canos.
There you go.
What could have been that little bell end playing for us?
Is there a perception that this kind of derailed the season somewhat?
I feel like that's almost entered into the story of this game, but it didn't really come to pass because we won the game after. Then we did lose at Huddersfield after that, and then at home to Cardiff. But we always kind of lost those games, and then we were all right again. We did recover, but then we got to April and everything went completely to shit. So
again, all very Leedsy. We took 5 points from the 7 games towards the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean that was the bit that went wrong.
There was a lot of complications at this time because there was we mentioned before about Radrizzani coming in, and there was the deal that if we'd been promoted, then Radrizzani and Cellino were going to stay as 50-50 owners in the Premier League. But if we stayed down, it would go 100% to Radrizzani. So that started raising its head. And this was also the season when Cellino had started it by saying that if we didn't get promoted, we would get 10% of the season ticket money back. If we didn't make the playoffs, we got 25%. I think that was the deal.
Yeah, something like that, wasn't it?
I thought it was more. I don't know.
Basically, there was a lot of money coming back to season ticket holders if we didn't make the playoffs. So that was the one good thing about missing out on the playoffs.
And, well, the good thing about missing out on the next round of the Cup, because it was Arsenal that Sutton got. I mean, I know the numbers might have changed according to which teams went through, but even still, if you take it as true to form that we would have been the same ball number.
Yeah.
Would you have not fancied Arsenal in the FA Cup for a bit of a change?
Yeah, just to mix it up
We'd
a
have
bit.
Liverpool in the Coke Cup. Not the Coke Cup. Was it Carling at this point?
Who knows?
The League Cup. Yeah, the Milk Cup.
The Milk Cup.
So we'd had one big rap.
And Arsenal's reserves a bit stronger than the Mackay Whitehouse axis, and beat them 2-0 in the next round. They ended up finishing mid-table in the National League, and then they got promoted to the Football League not long after in 2021. I suppose that means pitch had to come up then.
It did, but I did find this little bit of information. They've kept that penalty spot that it was scored from, and that lives behind the bar apparently.
A little bit of history that they
a little bit of history. So that's nice. We live on.
We gave you some AstroTurf in your pub.
What a weird thing to have. I could handle it if it was grass, but a bit of 3G turf.
It's the same bit though, because grass is always changing, isn't it? Whereas at least you can say no, that is the actual spot.
Legendary.
Legendary indeed. There you go. Yes. That is a TSB guide to Leeds losing at Sutton. Hope you enjoyed, and hopefully, as we recorded this ahead of Leeds playing Accrington Stanley, we don't repeat the
warding off the ghosts.
Absolutely. We'll see you in a bit.
The Square Ball Podcast.